A few months ago, I bought this 2014 BMW i3 Rex from an individual in Boston and drove it back. On the journey, we found quite a few issues with it, including air conditioning that didn't work, but it came with a new AC compressor in a box. The vehicle was in need of an oil change, the glass on the driver door didn't seal correctly, and a few other minor issues. So once we got back, it was over to John Ross's house to do an oil change, get it on the lift, and take a look at what all was going on with this car.
What do you think about the suspension?
We're just thinking it's roughly the size of the all-in shocks that I have on my mountain bike. It's standard size.
It really is. We've got some clunkety clunk noises from the front here.
It also smells like a lot of gasoline.
Yeah.
You're standing right by the vent tube.
Oh, I wondered what this vent was. I thought
is-
that was the car's vent. I'll just turn this.
Nose is 3 inches from the vent tube. Boy, it smells like fuel.
Sure, why?
I'm betting it's shock mounts.
Could be.
Bushings all look
Good.
really good. They're not torn. All the boots on the ball joints look good.
Oh, you weren't kidding. That does smell a lot.
Yeah. Big old battery. Doesn't look too bad to... Oh, look. Yeah, there's the AC lines that run into the...
Yeah.
There's your high voltage.
I like how they call it an electrical energy storage system.
I mean, they're not wrong.
They're not, but they're pretentious, and that's worse.
Yeah, this definitely could go up higher.
I can't actually...
Jake is fine.
I can stand up straight. What just happened?
Look how fast I am. You'll never believe it.
Yep, it needs change.
Yeah, it's dark. You can't see through it one bit.
Wow. Oh, this plastic piece is broken. Totaled the whole car.
Totaled.
Oh my gosh, that is so cute.
What?
The muffler. The suspension looks like suspension.
Yeah,
Vaguely.
it sure does.
Roughly.
It has links and things. I was just looking to see if
All the bushings
any
are
shock leaks or...
weirdly good.
Honestly, I thought it'd be worse at 80,000 miles. The motor mounts look like they've been replaced, and that was not like a recall or anything, I don't think.
They just broke.
It might have been yeah, they probably broke, and I think there might be a TSB for the later model years got the metal ones.
Yeah.
Like this has, so at least it was maintained by someone who,
Gave a shit.
at least a little bit.
Not the average BMW owner.
You know, I see some witness marks on some of these bolts, so some of this stuff's been apart for some reasons.
Yeah.
Presumably maintenance, but possibly shenanigans.
You like that sound?
Yay!
That stuff's the viscosity of water.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Before spending any money on parts to try and resolve the window not closing all the way, I decided to take the door apart, which was a lot easier said than done, given that no tutorials on the internet existed, and the door construction is pretty strange. There's several layers to this, like an ogre, and eventually we were able to get it off and discovered that it was just an adjustment that was out, and we were able to fix the window for free.
So yeah, there's that little T25 there, and I think what they were talking about, there's like a, it feels like a gear on your hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you go left with this, it'll pull those together, and
Sweet.
tightens the regulatory.
At least BMW finally figured out how to bond plastic to fibrous panels.
Once we got the door back together, we wanted to celebrate with some tacos, but while we were waiting for our food, we heard a bit of a noise, so I went outside, and fortunately, it really wasn't anything, just, you know, just nothing. After we did all that we could do at John Ross's shop, we took the car up to the Wizards and drained down the AC system so that we could put in that new AC compressor. Putting in the compressor itself was actually really simple. It's just right under the rear left side of the car, in front of the wheel, or next to the wheel rather. There's just a few bolts holding it in. It genuinely took less time than it would have taken on a combustion car.
Oh wait, here, what do you want? You want movie magic?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah. Why you? Yeah.
The car had a code for a stuck bypass valve, so we went ahead and exercised that with the 12-volt battery, and then we started on the task of getting all of the crud out of the AC system by back flushing it extensively with denatured alcohol. This is not a fun process.
So I say we load some more
Yeah.
from that direction.
Yeah.
It's in my arm. Ah, it sucks.
My hands are so dry and uncomfortable right now. I'm actually miserable. I already have issues with dry skin.
After a bunch of flushing, the fluid that started coming out and air and associated nonsense was completely free of the black death that gets stuck to the inside of the lines in AC systems when they have a compressor failure, so we were able to put the whole system back together just in time for a heck of a storm to roll in.
Yeah, we've got the inflow winds coming this way.
Range extender just kicked on, 43 miles on a full battery. Not great, but I am also getting like 3 miles per kilowatt hour, maybe average at 85 miles an hour, so more or less to be expected. Especially after 10 years and, what is this, 80,000 miles? 85,000 miles. That's pretty good, all things considered. Okay. Interesting. Well, cleared the codes and it's okay now. I think I overstressed the battery. I think the battery's a little unhappy in this car, so that's pretty fun. But we're going again. Got off the highway, took another route. Hopefully it's okay.
Beyond just replacing the compressor, I also wanted to replace the dryer/filter that was attached to the condenser, so I was going to do that at my house, but not before coding in a cheeky startup animation.
Step one, obviously, remove your frunk. My car didn't have one, so, you know, you've got a little wire clip to pop out, bolts here, and these two big boys here and here. Those are 18s, these are 8s and 10s, and then there's a couple of 10s here and here for the washer fluid reservoir. And we should be able to remove this plate at that point and gain access to the condenser and the radiator. So to get to this point, quite a few parts have to come out. Chiefly the headlights, which is a bit of a bear. A whole bunch of 8s all around, and get as much of the liner out as possible. And then you'll see there are 2 screws on the inside of the fender, and then the third one from the opposite direction, and those are 8s. And so you're gonna have to like snake your arm way up in there, and this one has the head facing forward, so you've got to get your tool in like that, which is really annoying. And then you can pull this back after undoing all these fasteners up here. You can pull that back and you can get to this headlight bolt right here. There's another headlight bolt back there somewhere, and then this one I went through the fender well for, so I stuck my hand up in there and got this one. It really sucked. Then over here, same sort of thing. There's your headlight bolts, and then you get this this brace off, and a little L bracket that goes over that big metal bar in the middle. It looks like it should come out, but it doesn't until you get all of that out of the way. And then the bracket comes off, the headlight comes off, and out it comes. It really sucks that the headlight's actually a lot easier to do on this side. The service manual only says you have to do this side, but I had to do both. I also had to take, I took this loose. I don't think I necessarily had to do that. I think really all I had to do was move this bracket out of the way and then unbolt that little L bracket that was holding in the big metal crossbar. Now, torque's here, took off that cover there, and now I have to figure out how to get the refrigerant lines off without putting the car in the air. I'm recording. What just
No idea.
That object that fell had comedic timing.
Oh, were you filming that?
Yeah.
Why does the shroud go down? It's like the shoulder thing that goes up.
Wow. Oh, so that's where the bolts were?
They were here.
Oh. Well, in my case, the AC fittings are very, very stuck in there. So I wasn't able to remove the compressor completely, but condenser. I keep saying compressor. There's screws right in there that are a huge pain to get to. And then you can unhook this bracket from here. And on the other side, I pulled it all the way off and pulled off the end, sort of this piece. Now here you can see, there's where that screw goes in. Very annoying to get to. There is this thing sitting in here, and I just kind of pushed it through the, I retracted it through the side of the car, and then this all just popped right out. So I'm pretty sure that's how that goes together. I also unbolted the horn, and that let me unbolt this big duct up here, though I can't quite take it out. There's bolts here and there. And yeah, now it's all reassembly. Oops, all reassembly. My favorite breakfast cereal.
Now that the filter dryer and the AC compressor were both replaced, it was time to go back up to the Wizards and vacuum and recharge the system again. Now, this isn't all the stuff that BMW says you could replace, but I was trying to do the bare minimum here to see what I could get away with. Unfortunately, the answer was not a lot. There was not a lot I could get away with at all. Bro, this car is the worst. Send it back to Germany. I'm done.
Gotta see if you can code that in.
Yeah, what?
Why can't we have the good number?
Oh, you know why? Because it's German, and if it's not an even number, it just doesn't feel right. You know, if it's not an even number or divisible by 5.
I figured it was because 69's a funny number and Germans don't have humor.
That's also probably true.
Yeah.
Did you see that Rivian's, the refreshed Rivians have a 420-mile range? I bet Elon is seething and punching the air because another EV company got to use the funny weed number.
Hey, at least it's better than a gradient. You want it approximately
I would like
this. I would like purple.
Purple air, please.
We're updating some modules while we're at it, and we have successfully enabled blue screen mode, apparently. Let's see if it works. Well, we know it works, but you gotta shut the door.
Okay.
Car on, AC on auto.
Listen to it.
Yeah, it is. Sounds like my fridge.
Is your fridge running?
Yeah, about 60 down the highway. So in the US, brake lights and taillights can't be on a moving panel, so when you open the hatch on a BMW i3, they switch down into the bumper. I changed the battery and now the car is French.
At this point, I thought the AC was working as well as it was going to, so I got out my laptop and battery charger and started doing a full module update on the entire car. This is about I think a 2 or 3 hour process where every single module in the entire car gets a updated software version from BMW. This also made the car French again for some reason. While I was at it, I also put some mass-loaded vinyl over the engine compartment cover to try and tone down on the noise from the wrecks, and then I went to Johnny's to do another vacuum and recharge and clean out the other expansion valve because the AC just wasn't working as well as I hoped it would.
Oh yeah, by the way, we're in a different shop, aren't we?
Oh my gosh. We sure are.
We get a little dribble out the end once in a while. It's okay.
Ah! Me when I.
Probably a better option.
Okay, high side is... This is the high side service port, right?
Sure is. Do you want to take the Schrader out?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm going directly into the...
Head on. Apply directly to the forehead. How's that feel?
Since the AC still wasn't working very well, I thought that it could be that both of the expansion valves were bad, so I bought 2 new expansion valves for the car and got those installed. These are recommended to be replaced by BMW when you do a compressor replacement, so I was just slowly replacing more and more of the things that I was supposed to eventually until I hit on a combination that worked. These are both really, really straightforward to do. Just pop out the cover in the front, and you don't even have to remove any covers to get to the back one on the battery, and then it's just 4 bolts, and they each come out, and the new one goes right back in. Then it was time for a recharge, but after we charged it and ran it for a while, I noticed that there was dye seeping through the case halves of the compressor. This wasn't coming from the hoses or anything, this was actually leaking out of the compressor halves. The compressor in my Corvette had the same kind of failure, so I got a new OEM compressor instead of a remanufactured one, which is about $1,600.
On electric cars too, unfortunately.
Are you telling me that you're not having a time of your life right now?
Oh, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. Bow with the bow, the bang, diggy, diggy.
New compressor, new expansion valves, and a new filter dryer, and still no air conditioning. At this point, I was absolutely baffled because all of the pressures looked good, but BMW actually tells you can't use the pressures as a metric to tell whether or not these AC systems are working correctly or not. That's because these use a variable displacement AC compressor that just does whatever it needs to maintain the correct pressures. What I ended up finding was that the pressure on the service port and the pressure from the pressure sender in the AC AC system were lagged slightly behind each other, which I finally realized indicated a blockage in the condenser itself. So what you're watching now is us replacing the condenser, which involved taking the entire nose of the car apart again. Previously, when I talked about this, I didn't remove the bumper, definitely remove the bumper, definitely remove more than BMW tells you to. I had access to BMW's technical information services by this point, and those instructions aren't even all that complete. You want to basically take the entire nose off the car, which is actually a lot easier than leaving it in place and trying to work around it.
So where does all this leave us? Well, it's almost winter now, and obviously AC is not a concern anymore, but the AC was great for the entirety of the summer once I got everything figured out. I also got this door fixed. Also very common on these, the little clips that hold it on will break off. A lot of the times this actuator sticks and this will prise it open and that breaks it off. I just cleaned it all very thoroughly with denatured alcohol and used some 3M trim glue, and that worked great. In the back here we've got, I added I should say 10-inch version of the old Infinity base link. We got a quick disconnect here so I can have my trunk space back if I need it. It's still messy back here because, well, I did that very recently and have not cleaned up. Other things we've got going on. Oh, tools from Harbor Freight. But I also got the OE all-weather BMW floor mats, and they have the BMW I logo on them, which is pretty dang nifty. Put all this stuff in the back. I've still been fighting with this door handle over here. It never wants to sit flush. If I tighten it enough, like following the factory service manual, it's supposed to be like 6 Newton meters or something, it just sticks and it doesn't actually actuate properly. Also, under the rear seat, I installed the amplifier, the Audiotech Fisher amplifier out of my E92, which has been great. So now this thing has half decent audio. I still don't have any sort of solution for CarPlay in here. One thing that I have not installed yet is this. This is a temperature probe, and this goes in the seat. Well, it goes in the driver's seat. The passenger seat's fine so far, but basically you just unhook the rear of the upholstery, shove this in there, and then crimp it onto the wires where the old temperature probe was, and that will fix my heated seat in here because, yeah, that kind of brings us to the first big drawback with this car. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that I get about 40 miles of range in this car on battery. And that doesn't seem like a lot at all because it really isn't, but for me it actually works pretty well. I reset the tripometer in this car, well, all of my cars, I reset the trip anytime I get gas, and right now the trip on this car is at 2,600 miles since I last actually had to fill up the gas tank for the Rex. I've used it once or twice when I've had to do something like take Hugo to the airport, and it's been a bit longer than this thing could actually manage, but for the most part, 40 miles has been getting it done for me. Wow, I should not drive in this direction. Look at that sun. Wintertime creates a whole host of unique EV problems. Now, the heater in an EV doesn't use a ton of power, especially when compared to something like, driving. I could probably sit in here with the heat set to a comfy level for 24 hours before the battery went dead. But when combined with the battery, it can have a pretty big effect on range. especially since not only does it have to heat the cabin, but it also has to maintain the temperature of the battery pack. And if you just hop in and start driving in the winter, then the battery pack has to first bring itself up to temperature before you can even access its full capabilities, before it'll even work efficiently. So the first 10 minutes or so of your commute are just tons of power getting sucked out of the pack to heat the pack up, and while that's happening, it's not working very efficiently because the pack's not at optimal temperature. This is all solved by basically remote starting the car or preconditioning it. In this car, you can do that one of two ways. Either with a schedule set through the iDrive menu where you say, hey, I leave at 7 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, have the car ready to go for me. And then it'll use wall power to get the cabin heated up, to get the battery pack heated up, to get everything set and ready to go in an efficient manner. Or you can use the app. That's a bit of a problem for me because, first of all, I don't have a set schedule at all, even in the slightest, and the app no longer works in the US on these older cars because these have a 3G radio in them, a 3G cellular radio, and 3G antennas, 3G towers don't exist anymore. They've all been shuttered. A lot of European countries are following suit and just ditching 3G because no phones really rely on it anymore. Which means that I have no real way to precondition the pack on this car, which means I can probably expect 25 to 30 miles of range in the winter. So beyond my concerns with driving this in the winter, which are clearly numerous, of course, fixing the seat heater will at least mean that I can keep myself sort of toasty warm without really running the heater as much, which is kind of nice. What these have for a heater is basically a heating element dunked in glycol coolant, which it cycles through a traditional heater core. I'm not entirely sure why they go that route instead of just having a resistive heating element in the heater box, but here we are. Beyond all of those concerns, this thing has been a phenomenal daily driver. Even though I have my 2020 M2 and a whole slew of other cars sitting around, this is the one that I drive the most frequently. Not the most miles, but the most frequently. If I'm just going somewhere in Wichita, this is the car that I hop in to do it. It's just, the electric powertrains are so easy. Nothing gets in my way, nothing bothers me, there's nothing annoying me about it. I'm not dealing with some stupid automatic transmission slush box's weird shift programming. I'm not listening to some horrific V6 moaning up and down its rev range while somehow delivering no torque. It's just get in and you go. And I've said this, I think, before, and I'll say it again. This car has better, more direct, more feedback in the steering than my M2 has, than my E92 has. Probably similar to my E46. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this thing, despite how big and practical it is, there's a Kia EV6 behind me. Neat. Despite how practical this is, it's still under 3,000 pounds. That is absurdly light for a modern car. And combined with the tiny little tires and the fact that that low weight means they don't have to crank the electric power steering up very much, you end up with a genuinely nice to drive hatchback. And of course, since it's a carbon fiber monocoque, it is super rigid. The chassis is fantastic. Also, it's a BMW, so the seats are pretty comfy by my book, and it delivers power good enough that, I mean, this thing never feels slow. So going forward with this car, I kind of have to figure out what I'm gonna do. The battery this has is a 60 amp hour battery. That was the one that they had from 2014 through 2017. That was the only option. After that, they got 94 amp hour batteries. And then the last couple years of this thing's production, they got the 94 or a 120 amp hour battery. So throughout just the lifespan of the BMW i3, battery technology advanced enough that you could fit twice as much battery in the same package. And of course, those larger packs will have gone through fewer cycles in the same miles. So chances are any 60 or any 94 or 120 amp hour pack I find is going to be a lot less worn down than the 60 amp hour in here, which has done, I believe, 900 cycles minimum in this car, if I did the math correctly, at 80-something thousand miles. And, you know, I think these got 90 miles of range, 100 miles of range factory, but you figure that went down over time, so it got more cycles as time went on. That sort of fuzzy math. This thing is pretty well beyond the expected life cycle for a lithium battery, especially one of this age. So I need to find a new battery. Unfortunately, they're about $6,000, which is a very tough pill to swallow. So if anybody has one lying around, hit me up. I would definitely like to upgrade the battery in this to a newer one. The 60 amp hour batteries, I could just cheap out and pay $1,500 or $2,000 for another 60 amp hour battery with a lot less miles on them. These haven't aged all that well, but very few of them have been abused as much as this one has. I don't think there exists a worse BMW i3 in running condition that is not actually wrecked than this car. This thing has been through the ringer. It's also missing a lot of, like, I'm still missing my front trim, and I'm missing the cargo cover back there, which is kind of annoying. Something I would like to do, and I've been working on a deal, but I think I'm getting ghosted right now. I'm trying to buy another one of these that has bad air conditioning. So if you have another i3 Rex with bad air conditioning and you're looking to sell it, please hit me up. I was working a deal for $3,000 for one. I was going to do an incredibly in-depth video on the whole process of DIYing the AC replacement, just to make that knowledge a bit more widely available. Every nut and bolt, every tool used, and how I did it. I was going to do the whole process again, just so that, you know, just for the good of the greater knowledge, I guess, because I hate to see these cars get scrapped or whatever, or parted out just because, you know, the AC went out and the dealership said that'll be $8,000. It doesn't need to be $8,000. It is DIYable if you have access to someone with an AC machine, or you can rent access to one from a shop. But like I said, I think that deal might be falling through, so if anyone has a car for sale, hit me up. My contact's in the thingamajig, contact at 100%jake.com. Obviously, it would need to be cheap because I'm going to have to ship it to Kansas and whatnot, but I would really like to be able to make that video, because this one was more of a vlog and a learning experience than it was a tutorial. Hopefully some of you got something out of this, at least a vague idea of how this works. I do think these cars are worth saving. Unfortunately, with the battery how it is, I'm probably going to end up daily driving the Insight in the winter. I've got a few front end suspension components coming to make that thing just a little bit nicer to deal with. But I can at least get the heated seats working in this. This thing's very practical. I've hauled all sorts of things in the back here. You fold the seats down, you just have an insane amount of room back there. It's absolutely wonderful. You know, when winter's over, this thing will probably get a detail and a polish and that sort of thing. It's in pretty beat up shape, but yeah, might as well clean it up. The headlights could definitely use a bit of a polish. It's a car, it's a utility. I will probably keep this until I can, probably until the Rivian R3 comes out. I would replace this with a Rivian R3 and not much else. My girlfriend's been driving this a lot too, and then she gets back in her Lincoln MKX and just kind of hates the whole automatic internal combustion car thing. Like, oh gosh, why is it all lurchy? Why is it weird? Why is there such a delay when I hit the pedal? That sort of thing, which I find absolutely hysterical, because that's a big part of the reason why I like manual cars, because they get rid of a lot of that. But it is a shame. There is a new BMW i3 coming out, and it has absolutely nothing to do with this car. It is simply a 3 Series with an electric motor slapped in and not much else. As near as I can tell, though, it will be built on the new BMW New Class architecture, if I remember correctly. So maybe we'll see a few interesting things, but the bosses at BMW, they killed the BMW i program and just kind of threw away all the innovation because it's just not as profitable as taking an ICE car and just sticking something in there. And none of this carbon fiber monocoque or anything was really going to scale all that well. So this car will just sort of forever remain a curiosity. I mean, same thing happened with the Honda Insight. The second generation Honda Insight was nowhere near as unique and innovative as the first gen. I think it might have gotten some aluminum construction carryover, but nowhere near as much. And of course, it wasn't a funky 2-door cam-back manual transmission sporty thing either. It was a second-gen Prius knockoff, and everything evolves into a crab eventually, so the i3s we have are all the i3s we're going to get. I don't know that there'll ever be a car like this again, unfortunately, but hey, you know what? They're out there, and they're cheap, and you can buy them, and you can fix them up like I did in this video. Thank you, as usual, to my Patreon supporters. They got to see this video early, and occasionally I post behind the scenes or ask them questions for input on future videos, so subscribe to that if you haven't. I try to be active on Patreon, but I do a very terrible job of it. And of course, thank you to all of you for watching. And thanks to BMW for taking a risk, even though it didn't pay off. Or maybe it did pay off. Who knows?